Well, first of all, I don't think that I can top, no matter what I say, Mitch's performance last night of Don't Stop Believin'. I mean, I wish that I could pull that off here this morning, but I don't think that I can. And speaking of Jefferson, we kicked off this entire conference with a thought about the future. Dr. Klasko came up and gave us a really great vision of what's going to happen in the future. And I want to bring us back to that. We've talked a lot about facilities. We've talked a lot about things happening in facilities right now. But I really want to bring us to this future. And not necessarily just the future of facilities, but the facilities are going to be impacted greatly by what's happening with the people that are coming to those facilities. And that's really what we want to get into today, is what's happening in our market, what's happening with consumers and how they're thinking, and how does that drive what we have to provide in those experiences that we are developing. So we're going to talk about 5 ways that healthcare is changing forever, and then what happens as a result of those 5 ways. First, I'm going to do a little bit of a commercial. So WD Partners, for those of you who haven't met with us yet, we are about innovation at scale. We develop innovative concepts, but then we have the ability to scale those in many, many multi-units. And that's really what we're all about. And we are also very fortunate to work with many of the best and brightest brands in the world. A lot of them in retail and consumer products and in food. These are people like Starbucks, Target, Walmart, CVS, Shake Shack. These are experiences that people love. They're experiences that people go out of their way to have. And that's not what we have in healthcare today. We really don't. And why can't we? Why can't we have those kinds of consumer-driven experiences that people love to have and actually do not, at least don't hate as much as they do today in the healthcare environment? The impact of the pandemic has been profound. And in many cases, obviously, it's been very, very damaging. We've had a lot of people impacted physically and many people that we've lost. But one thing that Dr. Seuss says, Theodore Geisel, says, when something bad happens, you have 3 choices. You can either let it define you, you can let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you. And I would submit that the pandemic has actually strengthened healthcare in many, many ways. It forced us to get out of our zone. It forced us to change. And the times are still a-changin', in the immortal words of Bob Dylan. That change is still happening. It's brewing, it's boiling, and it forced us out of our box. And we're going to look at how that has affected us in many, many different ways. The first is obvious. No location, no worries. Do we even need facilities is the question that a lot of people started to ask. Because we started seeing virtual care, which we had to do. We had to pull it together, and we did. We reacted. And virtual care became a staple during the pandemic, with over 1 billion virtual care visits, according to CNBC. But let's face it, what we did was we pulled it out, but we tacked it on to today's experience. It wasn't planned, we just did it, right? And so now we have to figure out, where does it go from here? And this is going to be one of the key changes that occurs as we go forward, is how do we integrate virtual care into an overall omni-channel experience that customers have with our entire system? Whether it weaves into telehealth, whether it weaves into the home, how does it weave into the post-acute experiences? All of these things are going to be part of an overall omni-channel experience. And for those of you who are in systems that say, hey, you know, let's just maximize the amount of telehealth, we saw that it was up to, 20%, 25% is where it's tapping out in terms of visits. And we saw the same thing in retail. We saw a lot of people say, hey, everything is going to go online. Everything's going to be e-commerce. But what we found is that consumers really want a balance. They want a hybrid of a physical experience and a virtual experience. And that's really been the winning formula in retail. And I think the same thing is going to be happening with virtual health as well. It's going to be part of what we offer, and an important part. But we have to determine where it provides value to the consumer and how does it affect their experience in a profound and better way. The second way in which healthcare is changing forever is we're moving away from just sick care to well care, to an overall experience that is continuous and promotes the well-being of our consumers. So we're moving away, as we've been seeing many models that are now coming out and expanding. They're value-based models. We're moving away from the fee-for-service volume-based model that doesn't incentivize actually being well. And we're now incentivizing keeping people healthy to avoid those tremendous costs and those tremendous pains from consumers as they go into more acute settings. And so this is something that is changing forever and is really stimulated by what has happened during this pandemic, which really alerted people to their immunity. It alerted people to just being healthier in general. It's raised their awareness of their health. And that has been incentivizing them to maintain that. Now, consumer products are coming to us all the time now talking about immunity products and many other things that are affecting them in the home so that they can stay well, not just in the healthcare system. The third way in which healthcare is changing is customer experience rules. And customer experience is something that we have to look at as this journey. The journey that we have across the spectrum of healthcare has got to be customer-oriented. Online, offline, all of it we have to look at these best-in-class experiences, not just in healthcare, but across the spectrum. And that's something that Dr. Klasko talked about a lot too, is getting out of our industry and looking at what is happening in the hospitality industry, in the dining industry, in the retail industry. These are all experiences that our people, the people that are coming to us, are having in everyday life. They don't just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to have a healthcare experience today. No, they're living their life and they're having all these experiences. So when they don't have them in our facilities or in our systems, it stands out. It stands out to them as being something that is worse and different. And we can't have that in the future. And that's a profound way in which we've learned that things have to change. The fourth way that we are changing forever is that we're escaping from the hospital campus. And we say that because the hospital campus has always been inconvenient. It's always been expensive. It's the most expensive place where you can do care. So we've always known that, and inpatient volumes have been declining for some time. But now what happened as a result of the pandemic is that it became risky. It became dangerous to go to the hospital campus in many people's minds. They avoided it. And in many cases, we told them not to come. And so it started to raise awareness of, oh yeah, that's that place where I can actually get more sick. That's not good. And so what we see is that this continued movement, because of this, but it was already stimulated, it was already accelerated, the movement to outpatient clinics, closer to where people live, work, and play, as well as the home. And the home is ultimately going to be a great place for us to serve our customers as well. But we can't just say, hey, we're going to move our box to these locations. We also have to think about the impact of the experiences as they get closer to where people live, work, and play. They can't just be mini versions of our hospital experiences put in those locations. They need to be designed and developed for specific segments of consumers who happen to live in those communities. So we have to look at specialties and what do those specialties mean to consumers in those markets? What about segments of consumers? Dr. Klasko talked about the segmentation schemes that they're going through. Well, in retail and consumer products, we look at segmentation and we develop concepts around those specific segments. And so that can happen in healthcare, so it resonates with consumers, it resonates with them and provides experiences that mean something to them and are not just generic healthcare experiences. The fifth way is moving from the doctor to the consumer. And this is what we feel is really going to be 21st century healthcare. Amazon, Uber, DoorDash, Netflix, these are concepts that started small, started as an idea, but now what they really showed us is the power of making consumers be in charge. They are in charge. They're the ones that are really driving this change. And healthcare is being forced to adapt to what we call the new sheriffs in town. They are the ones that really are going to control things going forward, rather than being the physician or the administrator of the hospital. We have to put things into the consumer's hands. So really what that all suggests is that we have to start getting real about consumerism. We've talked about consumerism in healthcare for a long, long time. But yet, I just saw a statistic the other day that only 7% of systems have a defined plan for reaching a consumerism culture in their system. 7%. So it's not happening yet. We have got to stimulate the discussion of making it actually happen, not just talking about consumerism. So when we look at what is defining consumerism, there are some things that we have to think about as to the hows of getting there. And the first one starts with cultural change. Cultural change can often begin with nomenclature. So we have the patient, and Dr. Klasko referred to that as well too. What is a patient? We're really comfortable with that term, but what does it suggest? It suggests one who suffers. I am suffering. But it suggests more than that. It suggests someone who is really in a less powerful position. Somebody is providing a service, is providing something. I am the doctor, you are the patient. I am the superior, you are not. There's a power position that is implied in that term. Traditional healthcare is really familiar with that term, really loves the term, and actually many of the clinical people resist this change. Many of the marketing people are all about getting rid of patient. And it just signals a cultural change. It's not that it's inherently bad, it's just that it doesn't give agency to people. These are not just people that are conditioned, they're not conditions that are walking around. They're human beings. And they're human beings that are making decisions, that are making choices, that are going one place or going to another place. That's agency. And when we refer to them as patients, we're viewing them as the condition. And we're viewing them within the context of us. They're not a patient until they walk through our doors, right? What are they before they walk through the doors? And that's what we have to combat, because they may not walk through our doors. They may not. What happens if they're just trying to maintain their health and they aren't actually suffering? What if they're trying to optimize their health as we move to a wellness world? Are they still patients at that point? What are we saying there? We're talking about the treatment rather than the person. And that's what we have to get away from. So how do we get this consumer-centered mindset as we change into the future? The first thing is choice. We have to understand that people have choices. High deductible plans have skyrocketed in the last 10 years. And so now people are spending more of their own money. They have skin in the game. And when they have skin in the game, they're not going to put up with bad experiences. They're not going to say, hey, yeah, I'm willing to sit around in a lobby for 20 minutes while I wait for something. That's not what they're going to do. There's an expanded choice of care delivery that puts the onus on the consumer to choose. And they're going to choose experiences that they desire. So also, they have to make choices based on what their perceptions are of what your health system offers. And a lot of health systems are just doing what they've always done. They try to serve everybody, and they serve everybody in a relatively generic way. Compare that to what you see in retail. When you see there's a difference between Nordstrom and a difference between Target, right? But they've positioned themselves that way. It's a conscious choice that they've selected segments of the marketplace. Most healthcare systems are kind of in the same general mode. We have to start looking at how we communicate our value proposition to consumers. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? Why would someone choose you? Why would they choose you? Not just be shipped over there in an ambulance, but why would they actually choose to go through your doors? That's what you have to think about, because increasingly it's a choice. And there are a lot of emerging disruptors that are looking to make that choice even more profound. These choices, these are just, in many cases, emerging players that are just starting to offer health services or are just starting to be penetrating. And so now, these are offering a different, better mousetrap in many cases. And as they expand, you're going to see more and more of them. Those choices are going to start impacting the business of the healthcare system. And it may just be a little bit here and there. Well, again, we saw this happen in retail. We saw that at one point the department stores ruled the roost in retail. I remember standing up at seeing at conventions, Les Wexner at the Limited saying, gosh, someday I might be as powerful as Federated Department Stores. Where's Federated Department Stores now? That's what became Macy's, and now they're practically bankrupt. So this can happen because they saw little bits of their business go away. Sporting goods, they saw books, they saw shoes, they saw other little splinters of their business go away. And the next thing you know, they're just left with just a slice of their market. So choice is a key aspect. And so when we look at what we can do to be a better choice, there's an example of Maven Clinic, for instance, which again took a segment of consumers, women. They said, how can we build and develop a concept that is all about women? And how can we make it a more compelling offer? Because we're not just treating the condition of what women's needs are. They're not just going into gynecology or obstetrics. They're treating the whole woman. Primary care, gynecology, mental health, acupuncture. And it's a personalized and an integrative type of a concept. It's virtual and in person. And that's part of the way that they operate. They have a membership model instead of a fee-for-service model. It's a different way of providing these services. That becomes compelling. And it becomes something that you might choose to go to as opposed to a traditional provider. Same thing with TIA. TIA is a very similar type of a concept. They've added in more fertility treatments. So they're starting before you even start to have a family. They're helping you to have the family with fertility treatments. They go through all the way through pediatric care. So it doesn't just stop when you have a baby. Now it's part of pediatrics as well. This is a compelling offer. And by the way, Maven is worth $1 billion. $1 billion. They just got a major funding round, and their value went to $1 billion. TIA just got a $200 million funding. Oprah has funded TIA because they have faith that this is a market share stealing concept. Who are they going to steal that market share from? Control is another aspect of being toward consumerism. And so this is really about consumers are more informed than ever before they arrive. And 51% are extremely or likely to tell their doctor when they disagree with them. So now this is the consumer saying, I'm in control. I want to be able to have a say in my own treatment plan. And they're demanding personalized services, personalized solutions. So the implication here is that practices need to be a trusted guide. And you need to know where the good information is and help them find that good information, but also personalize your services. So an aspect of control, an example of that is Curology, which has customized skincare. So that you can snap selfies of your skin, you can snap selfies of certain aspects, you submit them to them. They have qualified dermatologists that will provide a personalized plan for you, customized products that have a customized set of ingredients that are just for you. Just for you. This is personalized, and it makes you feel very special, and it makes you feel like a human as opposed to just a condition. Cost is another aspect of being consumer-centered. No other industry has hidden prices. You don't even walk into car dealerships and have hidden prices. Now those are even one-price concepts. In many ways, you're worse than the automotive industry, which is something else. But hiding prices is not acceptable. Transparency mandates and the retail clinics that are opening that just have a menu of prices just like they have for anything else, that's going to force your hand to say, we have to be clear about our prices. You can no longer afford to hide costs. And you can't, and it's not good practice to surprise people with large bills. This is a great dissatisfier for people when they don't not only not know what it's going to cost, when they get the bill and they can't afford it and they go bankrupt as a result. That's not a satisfier. That doesn't create a consumer loyalty. It's a dissatisfier. So you've got concepts like Sidecar Health that are coming out that cuts the red tape between consumers and doctors. And they pass those savings along to the consumer. They have clarity, and they have arrangements with every doctor in their system, and they show the prices comparatively between doctors. They're like, Geico for healthcare. And so you can see what each of these doctors charges. You can make the choice as to where you want to go. Maybe you think one doctor's worth more. That's fine. But at least you know what those prices are. And they also help you to submit your claims. And then they also intervene and have dedicated member care. There's actually a whole industry of people that are trying to help people navigate healthcare. Just think about that. That's so complex that there's an industry that is navigating the system. And that's so bizarre. But people like this are forcing the issue and creating clarity. But that's an area where you can, in fact, be different, right? By being easier to deal with and being clearer and transparent. That's a positioning point, potentially, to be more of a consumer-driven health system. And then there's the aspect of being continuous. The management of personal health is becoming continuous rather than episodic. We now have an increased adoption of things like wearables and home health monitoring devices. And people with chronic conditions say, you know what, I would love that. I would love to have that. 90% say that they would better manage their condition if they had access to these tools. Why aren't we prescribing them? Why aren't we providing them? Why don't we give them away? And more than half of them would switch doctors to one that would prescribe a specialized device. So practices need to move and transition to comprehensive well-being. Of course, we've got the original wearable, which was the mood ring, right? So that was a form of wearable way back. But now we've got a lot more sophisticated types of wearables and home medical monitoring. And companies like Forward are offering a monitoring service along with their overall plan. So they track your mental health, they track your stress, they monitor your skin. You can connect with your doctor 24/7 with questions and answers. This is continuous healthcare. It's not just like, hey, come back in 6 months and see me. That's not the way they operate. That's maybe a better mousetrap for some people. That is a compelling positioning. It is a way to capture market share. And then the last one is convenience. Convenience is something that the healthcare community's never been all that great at. The average wait time for a new patient in the largest cities in the US is 24 days. 24 days. And the average time to wait in a lobby, wait in your waiting room is 18 minutes. 18 minutes. In no other task would you be willing to put up with this. So why should you do it for healthcare? So consumers are going to be loyal to people that show that their time matters. You value their time. You value their humanity. An example of that is Heal. And then you can also talk about many other concepts that are offering services to the home. Being at home is pretty convenient. Not leaving your home, that's pretty convenient. It's a pretty compelling offer. Offering house calls, telemedicine, remote monitoring, all there. Primary care with urgent care and preventative care, all there in the comfort of your own home. That's pretty convenient. But that's also a positioning advantage. It's a way of them being able to capture market share. So all this, what this is saying is that we have got to change our mindset. We've got to change our mindset from, and this is a Dr. Klasko quote again too. I've been a big Dr. Klasko fan even before this conference, but I've been using this quote in a lot of my presentations, that we're going through a once-in-a-lifetime change in healthcare. Think about that. Once-in-a-lifetime change in healthcare from Dr. Klasko. This is where we are right now. We are moving from a B2B model to a B2C model. From the physician and the administrator as the boss to the patient as the boss. I'd say the consumer is the boss. And if you believe that, then you have to fundamentally change how you view things. And I hope that this has fundamentally changed how you view things, how you view the delivery of your services, because we have got to stop talking about it. We've got to start acting on it. It's time to get real about consumerism in healthcare. Thank you very much. If you want to download our white papers, they're available here.
Thank you so much, Dan. Another amazing talk.